December 2015, San Francisco. A dinner that almost nobody outside Silicon Valley knows about. Sam Altman is 30 years old and running Y Combinator, the most influential startup accelerator in the world. Elon Musk has already founded Tesla and SpaceX and is, by most measures, the most ambitious technologist alive. Greg Brockman is 27, a dropout from Harvard and MIT who had just left Stripe, one of the fastest-growing financial companies in the world. Ilya Sutskever is a research scientist who 3 years earlier had co-authored a paper that changed everything anyone thought they knew about artificial intelligence. They sit down together. The subject is not a product. It is not a business plan. It is a problem. At this exact moment in 2015, Google has quietly acquired a British AI lab called DeepMind for $500 million. Facebook has built its own AI research division under Yann LeCun. Both companies are racing. Neither is telling the public what they are racing toward. The people at that dinner believe they know. They believe the destination is a form of intelligence that will exceed human capability across nearly every domain. Not just chess, not just image recognition, but everything. They call it AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. And they believe, with complete seriousness, that whoever builds it first will hold more power than any government, any military, or any institution in human history. Their response to this is not to slow down. It is to run faster, but differently. OpenAI is incorporated in December 2015 as a nonprofit. The logic is simple, and if you believe the premise, completely rational. If AGI is coming regardless of what anyone does, it is better to have it built by people who are not trying to make money from it. They raise $1 billion in pledged funding, from Musk, from Altman, from Peter Thiel, from Reid Hoffman, from Amazon Web Services. They hire the best researchers they can find and promise them something no technology company can. Their work will never be locked behind a product roadmap or a quarterly earnings call. The name is a mission statement disguised as a proper noun. Open. AI. Everything published. Everything shared. The research available to anyone. For about 3 years, this holds. By 2018, something has changed. The compute required to train a competitive AI model is doubling roughly every 3.5 months. The nonprofit model, which depends on pledged donations, cannot keep pace with Google and Facebook, which spend billions on infrastructure per quarter without anyone asking for a return. Ilya Sutskever, the chief scientist, begins telling the board something uncomfortable. OpenAI is losing the talent war. The best researchers in the world can work here or work at DeepMind. DeepMind offers stock. OpenAI offers mission. Mission is not always winning. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has a proposal. He wants control. He suggests merging OpenAI with Tesla or taking over as CEO. The board declines. In February 2018, Musk resigns. Publicly, he cites a conflict of interest. Tesla is developing autonomous vehicle AI, and it would be awkward. Privately, the people who remain say something different. They say Musk was told no, clearly and directly, and he did not consider that a permanent answer. Musk's departure leaves a funding gap and a question. How do you build the most capable AI in the world without the money that only a commercial enterprise can generate? In 2019, OpenAI invents a legal structure that has essentially never existed before. They create a capped profit subsidiary underneath the nonprofit. Investors in this subsidiary can make money, but no more than 100 times their initial investment. Above that ceiling, everything reverts to the nonprofit mission. It is an attempt to reconcile two things that resist reconciliation: the need for capital and the original promise to humanity. Microsoft is the first to write a check under this structure. $1 billion in 2019, another $2 billion in 2021, $10 billion more in January 2023. In exchange, Microsoft gets priority access to integrate OpenAI's models into everything it makes: Word, Excel, Teams, Bing, Azure cloud infrastructure. For Microsoft, which spent a decade watching Google own the web and Apple own the phone, this is not a financial investment. It is a repositioning of the entire company around what Satya Nadella believes will be the next computing platform. In the lab, the team is training a language model on text drawn from essentially the entire written internet. The architecture comes from a 2017 paper called "Attention is All You Need," written by 8 engineers at Google Brain, most of whom have since left Google to found or join competing companies. The model learns by doing one thing at enormous scale, predicting what word comes next. Given enough data and enough compute, something happens that the researchers cannot fully explain. The model begins exhibiting capabilities it was never explicitly trained for. It can reason through problems, it writes working code, it summarizes documents, translates between languages, and adjusts its tone depending on how you speak to it. They call it GPT. Then GPT-2. Then GPT-3, released in 2020 to developers via API. The response from the research community is not enthusiasm. Several prominent AI researchers publish open letters calling for a pause, citing capabilities they describe as dangerous. OpenAI reads the letters and trains GPT-4. In November 2022, they take what was previously only available to developers and put it behind a text box that anyone with an internet connection can find. A text box. You type, it responds. They call it ChatGPT, and they expect moderate interest from a technically minded audience. 1 million users in 5 days, 10 million within 2 weeks, 100 million in 8 weeks. No product in the history of the internet had reached 100 million users in under 9 months. Instagram took 2.5 years. TikTok took 9 months. ChatGPT did it in 8 weeks, with essentially no marketing budget, no celebrity endorsements, and no viral moment. People simply tried it, and then told other people to try it, and then those people told others. What made it different from every AI demo that came before was not the capability. Researchers had seen capable models for years. What was different was the interface. There was nothing to install, no API key to generate, no documentation to read. You opened a browser, typed a sentence, and received a response that felt, to most people encountering it for the first time, like talking to something that understood you. Teachers used it to write lesson plans. Lawyers used it to draft memos. Students used it for homework. Programmers used it to debug code they had spent hours on. Every profession discovered simultaneously that some portion of what it did every day could be delegated to a text box. The reaction from Google, which had its own language models sitting in research labs for years, was described internally as a code red. Within 2 months of ChatGPT's launch, Google accelerated the release of Bard, its own conversational AI product. The company that had defined internet search for 20 years was now racing to catch a nonprofit spinoff from San Francisco. Sam Altman posts that server costs are unsustainable. They raise more money. The valuation goes from $29 billion to $80 billion. By 2025, to $157 billion. By early 2026, to over $300 billion, making OpenAI one of the most valuable private companies in history, run by a nonprofit board with no obligation to outside shareholders, built on a promise that profit would never override mission. On November 17, 2023, Sam Altman is fired. The message arrives on a Friday afternoon, 4 days before Thanksgiving. Altman is removed not by investors, not by Microsoft, not by employees, but by OpenAI's 5-person board of directors, which holds ultimate authority over the nonprofit and is legally obligated to prioritize humanity's interests above any financial consideration. The stated reason is that Altman had not been consistently candid with the board. No specifics are provided, no examples. A statement written like a legal document authored by people afraid of saying the actual thing. What follows is the most extraordinary 96 hours in the history of Silicon Valley. Greg Brockman, co-founder and president, resigns within hours in solidarity. By Saturday, over 700 of OpenAI's 770 employees have signed an open letter threatening to resign unless Altman is reinstated and the board members who fired him step down. Microsoft, which has $13 billion at stake, publicly offers Altman a position leading a new internal AI division, an unambiguous message to the board that the money will follow wherever Altman goes. Ilya Sutskever, OpenAI's chief scientist and one of the board members who voted to remove Altman, signs the employee letter demanding his return. He later says publicly that he regrets his vote and calls it a mistake. 4 days after being fired, Sam Altman walks back into OpenAI headquarters as CEO. The board members who removed him are gone. A new board is assembled, this time including people with closer ties to the company's commercial operations and financial backers. The public never receives a full accounting of what specifically triggered the firing or what those 4 days involved at a human level. The most detailed reporting from multiple journalists describes a fundamental disagreement about speed, about how fast to ship capability into the world, about whether the commercial momentum of ChatGPT was compatible with the careful, deliberate culture the nonprofit had promised in 2015. The board believed Altman was moving too fast and managing information too selectively. The employees, the investors, and apparently the global AI community believed the board was wrong. 8 months after the coup fails, Ilya Sutskever leaves OpenAI and founds a new company called Safe Superintelligence. No products, no revenue. One stated objective: build superintelligent AI safely, with no commercial pressures of any kind. The mission statement is a nearly word-for-word echo of the original OpenAI founding document. In February 2024, Elon Musk files a lawsuit against OpenAI, Sam Altman, and Greg Brockman. His argument? The company violated its founding agreement by subordinating its nonprofit mission to the commercial interests of Microsoft. The organization he helped create to ensure AI remained in public hands had become, in his telling, a proprietary technology company serving a corporate partner worth nearly $3 trillion. OpenAI's legal response argues that Musk had attempted to seize control of the company in 2018, that his departure was not the principled exit he describes, and that he had since founded xAI, his own artificial intelligence company, making his lawsuit less about principle and more about competition. Several of his text messages from 2018 are cited, in which he discusses taking a majority stake and full control of OpenAI. The case is ongoing. Both companies continue training. By mid-2026, ChatGPT has over 500 million weekly active users. OpenAI's models generate video, write production code, conduct multi-step research autonomously, and score in the top percentile on bar exams, medical licensing tests, and graduate-level mathematics. The technology is inside Microsoft Word, inside the Bing search bar, inside hospital systems generating clinical documentation, inside law firms reviewing contracts, inside classrooms where students use it to write essays and teachers use it to write lesson plans. The 8 engineers who wrote the Transformer paper in 2017, the architecture that made all of it possible, have collectively founded or co-founded companies now valued at more than $1 trillion combined. Most left Google within 5 years of publishing. The average age of the authors when they wrote the paper was 31. One of them spent a year on a farm in Wales before returning to AI. Sam Altman, at 40, runs the most talked-about company in the world. He holds almost no equity in it. The nonprofit structure means he has built something worth $300 billion and retained a fraction of what the founders of any comparable company would have kept. Whether this is a deliberate ethical choice or simply an artifact of the original structure is something his defenders and critics have very different answers to. The 9 companies most directly competing with OpenAI were largely founded by people who left OpenAI. Anthropic, by Dario Amodei and Daniela Amodei, former OpenAI VP of Research and VP of Safety, who left citing concerns about the pace of deployment. Cohere, by Aidan Gomez, one of the Transformer paper's authors. Mistral, Inflection, Adept, Stability. The diaspora of one company's research culture has become the architecture of an entire industry. What none of these companies have is what OpenAI has by virtue of being first. The product that 500 million people use. The interface that became synonymous with AI, the way Google became synonymous with search. The brand that made the technology legible to people who had never thought about large language models, training data, or transformer architecture. A text box. You type, it responds. A group of people sat down in December 2015, afraid of what the world would look like if the wrong people built AGI first. They concluded the correct response was to build it themselves, carefully, slowly, safely, and openly. The word open is in the company name. By 2024, OpenAI had stopped publishing the technical details of its most powerful models, citing competitive and safety concerns. The research that was supposed to be shared with everyone is now proprietary. The name remained. There is a version of this story where everything went according to plan, where the nonprofit structure held, where the mission stayed intact, where the most capable AI in the world was developed slowly and carefully by people with no financial incentive to rush. That version did not happen. 10 years later, the system runs on Microsoft's servers. The off switch, such as one exists, sits with a nonprofit board in San Francisco, whose members now include people appointed after a failed coup. The researchers who cared most deeply about safety have largely left to build something smaller and, they believe, more honest about what it is trying to do. And the technology, the thing they were afraid of, the thing they built to prevent others from building carelessly, is open on 500 million screens right now as you watch this. This is the full story.